open seas are increasingly becoming a stage for rising tensions between the US and China. As American warships sail through these important international waters, they are frequently shadowed by Chinese surveillance vessels, a deliberate strategy by China to assert its growing naval power. These encounters, a combination of military strength, advanced technology, and international legal disputes, heighten the risk of accidental conflicts. What activities are carried out in the United States ships during these tense standoffs? How exactly do these confrontations end? Join us as we explore exactly what happens when a Chinese spy ship is spotted following a U.S. Navy carrier group. On the vast open sea, United States Navy warships, some of the most powerful in the world, regularly find themselves under surveillance by Chinese vessels. These encounters are far from ordinary. They involve a mix of military strength, advanced technologies, and the complexities of international law. The situation goes beyond just ships passing by each other. It involves careful monitoring, strategic responses, and sometimes tense standoffs. When an unidentified vessel is detected near a U.S. aircraft carrier, the crew immediately springs into action. The first priority is to determine the identity and intentions of the approaching ship. This is done using the ship's sophisticated radar systems and high-powered optics, which are capable of gathering vital information about the unknown vessel, such as its size, speed, and heading. The crew uses this data to form an initial assessment of the situation and decide how to respond. One of the key tools for the U.S. Navy in these situations is the ANP-1 phased array radar. This advanced system can track multiple surface contacts simultaneously at distances beyond 100 nautical miles. This provides the crew with ample time to evaluate the situation and prepare their next steps. In addition to radar, the carrier also relies on electro-optical and infrared sensors. These sensors offer visual confirmation of the vessel, even in low visibility conditions, allowing the crew to monitor and track the ship with greater precision. As soon as the radar systems detect the unknown vessel, the communications team begins its role in managing the situation. They attempt to establish radio contact with the approaching ship using internationally recognized maritime frequencies. The message delivered is always clear and professional, with the goal of avoiding escalation. This is a United States Navy vessel conducting routine operations in international waters. Please identify yourself and state your intentions. If the vessel is identified as a Chinese spy ship, the communication becomes even more crucial. The U.S. Navy's approach remains steady, calm, and professional, regardless of any rising tensions. The message may include something like, "Chinese vessel, this is the U.S. Navy carrier. We are conducting lawful operations in international waters. We ask that you maintain a safe distance and avoid any actions that could be perceived as threatening or hostile." This initial interaction serves several key purposes. First, it shows the U.S. Navy's readiness and willingness to uphold its rights under international law. Second, it makes the intentions of the U.S. clear, emphasizing that their operations are peaceful and lawful. Third, it provides a space for communication, reducing the risk of misunderstandings that could escalate tensions. By maintaining professionalism and transparency, the U.S. Navy seeks to de-escalate potentially dangerous situations while asserting its authority in international waters. Throughout these encounters, the U.S. Navy is guided by established protocols and a commitment to peaceful conflict resolution. Despite the potential for tension, the goal is always to avoid confrontation, ensuring that international law is respected and that both parties understand each other's actions. The combination of high-tech radar, clear communication, and strategic decision-making is what helps the U.S. Navy navigate these complex and often sensitive situations with confidence. The carrier's crew is trained to maintain professionalism and follow international maritime laws during all operations. To avoid any misunderstandings, they are fluent in several languages, including Mandarin Chinese, ensuring clear communication with crews from various countries. When faced with unexpected situations at sea, the crew follows established protocols, which are designed to minimize any potential confusion or errors. These protocols are essential for maintaining order, especially during unplanned encounters at sea. While communication is ongoing, the carrier uses its advanced sensor systems to monitor and collect information about the surrounding area. Radar specialists closely track the movements of any spy ships, ensuring that the crew is aware of any potential threats. At the same time, electronic warfare experts analyze various signals, such as radar emissions, radio transmissions, and other electronic footprints. These signals can provide vital information about the capabilities and intentions of the enemy, which is crucial for decision-making and response. The carrier is equipped with powerful electronic warfare systems like the AN/SQ-32, which can detect, identify, and, if necessary, jam enemy radar and communication systems. This technology allows the crew to form a comprehensive electronic picture of their surroundings, identifying the types of ships in the area and assessing potential risks. By disrupting enemy radar and communication, the crew can prevent hostile forces from gathering useful information or coordinating their actions. To extend the carrier's surveillance capabilities even further, an E-2 Hawkeye aircraft may be deployed. This airborne early warning system is equipped with advanced radar technology that can detect and track both surface and air contacts at long ranges. With the ability to scan vast areas, the E-2 Hawkeye can detect other ships or aircraft that might be operating in coordination with the spy ship, helping the carrier's crew stay one step ahead. The E-2 Hawkeye is capable of tracking up to hundreds of targets simultaneously, and its radar can reach distances of up to 350 nautical miles. Its ability to provide real-time information and coordinate with both fighter jets and surface ships makes it a valuable asset, especially in complex maritime situations. Also, intelligence analysts stationed on the aircraft carrier meticulously analyze the data they've gathered, cross-referencing it with what is already known about China's naval capabilities. They specifically search for any unusual behavior or signs of new technologies that might suggest a change in China's naval tactics, strategies, or technological advancements. The analysts rely on sophisticated software programs to compare the characteristics of the Chinese spy ship with a large database of known vessel types. In particular, they focus on identifying any modifications, upgrades, or new equipment that could point to advanced surveillance or weapon systems. This helps them determine if there are any changes in the Chinese military's abilities. While the U.S. Navy is actively collecting this intelligence, it is important to note that they operate within the framework of international law. The Navy recognizes the fine line between lawful surveillance and provocative actions that could escalate tensions. As such, they take care not to cross that line, ensuring that their primary mission is not compromised. Despite the presence of the Chinese spy ship, the Navy continues to focus on their core operations. This includes carrying out freedom of navigation operations, participating in joint military exercises with allies, and patrolling international waters. The carrier group stays on course with its planned activities, demonstrating that the U.S. Navy will not be intimidated or deterred from conducting its lawful operations. This sends a clear and strong message to other nations. The U.S. Navy remains committed to its missions, regardless of external pressures or surveillance. However, the presence of the Chinese spy ship may lead to some strategic adjustments by the U.S. Navy. Although the carrier group's overall mission continues as planned, certain sensitive operations might be adjusted to minimize the amount of valuable intelligence that the spy ship could gather. For instance, if the carrier group was planning a missile defense exercise, they might choose to delay or change the timing or location of the exercise. By doing so, they reduce the likelihood that the Chinese ship will collect meaningful data about the Navy's capabilities or tactics. Similarly, the Navy could alter their electronic emissions to limit the amount of information available to the spy ship. Using strict emissions control procedures, the Navy can reduce the visibility of their activities and minimize the risk of the spy ship gaining access to critical intelligence. This careful balancing act ensures that the U.S. Navy completes its mission while being mindful of the fact that their actions are under constant observation. By adjusting certain activities, the Navy avoids making it easier for the Chinese spy ship to gather detailed information. This approach highlights the Navy's ability to operate effectively while maintaining control over the flow of sensitive data, even in the face of surveillance from potential adversaries. The strategic modifications made are subtle but effective in limiting the intelligence value of the spy ship's observations. The U.S. Navy is careful not to jeopardize its mission objectives while still operating under the constraints of being monitored by an observing foreign vessel. Ultimately, the U.S. Navy's focus remains on achieving its mission, regardless of the surveillance tactics employed by other nations. U.S. aircraft carriers, in many situations, do not operate by themselves. These ships are often supported by vessels from allied countries, especially when they are navigating through sensitive regions like the South China Sea. The presence of a Chinese spy ship in such areas adds another layer of difficulty to the operation. The complexity of managing multiple nation ships in close quarters demands clear, precise communication between all vessels involved. The importance of this communication increases significantly when monitoring a potential threat like a spy ship. In these multinational operations, the U.S. aircraft carrier typically assumes the role of the flagship and takes the lead in organizing the response efforts. This leadership can include delegating specific duties to individual ships. A notable instance of this occurred in April 2024 when the USS Harper Ferry operated in close coordination with naval ships from the Philippines and France. This multinational presence helped complicate China's attempts at surveillance. Allied ships play an integral role in gathering valuable intelligence during these operations. By spreading out and positioning themselves in different locations around the area, they can collect observations from various angles. This strategy enables the Allied forces to create a more complete and accurate picture of the spy ship's activities. Each vessel provides unique perspectives. The success of this approach lies in the ability of each ship to operate independently while still working toward a unified objective. The outcome is not only an increase in situational awareness, but also a demonstration of the strength and unity of the international alliance. A key advantage of the U.S. Navy is its ability to seamlessly integrate operations with the navies of allied countries. Regular joint exercises, such as the annual Balikatan exercises held with the Philippines, are vital in ensuring that allied forces can work together effectively under high-stress conditions. These exercises simulate real-world challenges, preparing the forces for situations where quick coordination and decisive action are required. This ongoing collaboration strengthens the bonds between the U.S. and its allies, ensuring that all nations are ready to respond quickly and efficiently when needed. The encounters between U.S. aircraft carriers and Chinese spy ships take place within the context of international maritime law. One of the most important frameworks governing these interactions is the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. This international treaty, often called the Constitution for the Oceans, outlines the rights and responsibilities of countries regarding the use and protection of the world's oceans. UNCLOS, which came into force in 1994, defines various maritime zones and the rights that nations have in these zones. These zones include territorial waters, exclusive economic zones, and the high seas. The high seas specifically are areas that are beyond any single nation's jurisdiction. In these areas, all countries are granted certain freedoms. These freedoms include the right to navigate, fly over, lay submarine cables, and conduct scientific research. This status of the high seas allows nations to operate in international waters without interference from others, provided they respect international laws. It is within this context that U.S. naval forces conduct operations, and it is also within this framework that China's spy ships must navigate. Understanding and abiding by these rules is crucial for maintaining peace and stability in these contested areas, ensuring that all nations can safely and lawfully use the oceans for their purposes. After the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea came into force, it granted all ships, including military vessels, the right of innocent passage through the territorial waters of coastal states. This right extends to the exclusive economic zones of nations, which can extend up to 200 nautical miles from a country's coastline. Within these zones, foreign ships are allowed to conduct activities, but only if they do not interfere with the coastal state's economic rights or security. This principle is central to ensuring freedom of navigation in international waters and preventing disputes over maritime territories. The U.S. Navy's operations in the South China Sea are carried out under the principle of freedom of navigation, which has long been a part of international maritime law. This principle, as outlined by UNCLOS, allows ships to navigate freely through international waters and EEZs without interference from coastal nations, as long as they do not violate any national security or economic interests. However, tensions have risen due to China's interpretation of these laws. China has claimed nearly all of the South China Sea as its sovereign territory, well beyond the boundaries recognized by international law. This claim is based on the 9-dash line, a controversial and ambiguous boundary that China uses to assert ownership of approximately 90% of the South China Sea. This claim overlaps with the EEZs of other nations, including the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei, which are also claiming rights to the resources within these waters. In response, the U.S., along with other countries, has rejected China's expansive territorial claims. The U.S. Navy has conducted numerous freedom of navigation operations in the region to assert the rights of all nations to navigate freely through these disputed waters. These operations typically involve U.S. warships sailing within 12 nautical miles of areas that China claims as its territory, signaling the U.S.'s position that these claims are not legally recognized. The phone ops are carefully planned and executed with a focus on challenging China's excessive maritime claims while staying within the boundaries of international law. These operations often include public statements by the U.S. Navy explaining their objectives and the importance of upholding international maritime rights. The presence of Chinese spy ships trailing U.S. carrier groups during these operations is often seen as part of a broader strategic contest. While such surveillance activities are not explicitly prohibited under international law, they contribute to an atmosphere of tension and mistrust between the two nations. The spying efforts by China are a reminder of the intense geopolitical rivalry in the region, as both the U.S. and China attempt to assert their dominance and control over critical maritime routes and resources. It is important to note that while the United States is a strong supporter of the principles outlined in UNCLOS, it has not ratified the treaty itself due to domestic political considerations. However, the U.S. adheres to many of UNCLOS provisions, considering them to be customary international law. This has caused some friction with nations that are part of the treaty, as the U.S. continues to operate as if bound by the convention without being an official signatory. China has been modernizing its navy at a fast pace, building up its fleet of surveillance vessels, submarines, destroyers, and aircraft carriers. One such vessel is the Tianwanjing, a surveillance ship that tracks U.S. naval movements, demonstrating China's growing ability to project power and monitor foreign naval operations in the region. This naval buildup is part of a broader strategic plan by China to become a world-class military power by 2049, the 100th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. To achieve this goal, China has heavily invested in modernizing its military, including its navy, to ensure it can protect its claims in the South China Sea and assert its influence in the broader Asia-Pacific region. The increasing presence of Chinese surveillance ships and military assets in disputed waters is a reflection of China's ambitions to challenge the existing maritime order and assert its rights over the South China Sea. The encounters between U.S. Navy carriers and Chinese spy ships are not just about direct interactions. They also serve as a chance for both nations to test and improve their technology and tactics. These situations allow both the U.S. and China to learn more about each other's strengths, from advanced electronic systems to how their ships operate. For instance, in April 2024, two U.S. allied ships were closely approached by the Chinese spy ship Tianwanjing. This likely provided China with important details about the emissions and movements of U.S. naval vessels. Similarly, the U.S. also gathers valuable information about China's surveillance techniques and how its ships behave. Looking ahead, the frequency and nature of these encounters could heavily influence future naval strategies and international maritime laws. As China continues to assert control in certain areas, like the South China Sea, the U.S. is focused on maintaining its presence and influence. This creates a situation where both sides need to be cautious to avoid misunderstandings that could lead to bigger conflicts. Efforts to reduce tensions and build trust between the two navies are vital. One such initiative is the Code for Unplanned Encounters at Sea, an agreement made by Pacific nations, including the U.S. and China, to improve communication and reduce the chances of accidents when ships unexpectedly meet. Still, it's unclear how well this will work during high-stakes situations. In addition to this, the U.S. and China have an agreement called the Military Maritime Consultative Agreement, which helps them talk about safety on the seas. While this agreement hasn't always been successful in easing tensions, it's an important way for both nations to communicate. These naval encounters represent a larger struggle between the two most powerful nations in the world, with each trying to strengthen its position in the Pacific. How this competition plays out will have major effects on global politics and the balance of power in the 21st century. Thanks for watching. While you are still here, click on the link on your screen to check out another of our videos. See you there.